Ryan!
Howdy!
Welcome back to another weekly episode. We've got a bike from Trek here. This is the Trek Supercaliber 9.8 with the AXS build on it. Pretty cool bike. You just got it built up for a customer today. What are your kind of initial thoughts on this bike? I wanted to kind of give people a shakedown. What makes this bike special? What makes this bike different? We'll get into the details of it, but what were your kind of like overall thoughts here at first with this bike?
It was really nice out of the box. Like I said, with a lot of bikes, it pulled out of the box really easily. This one particularly so much so that I decided to weigh it when I was done building. The final weight on this bike without pedals, with tubeless sealant, is 23 pounds, 11 ounces. So it's pretty close to like your average hardtail weights. It's well under any of your full suspension weights, and it does still have 60 mils of travel out of the rear thanks to the Trek ISO strut. So there's a shock inside this strut that's fully tunable like any other shock, and then the rest of it's really simple. You don't have a whole lot of linkage to deal with. There's no active pivot in the rear, so these chainstays here actually flex a little bit whenever that goes through its travel. And then 100 mil of travel out the front and remote lockout, so pretty awesome rig for cross-country style riding.
Yeah, and the remote lockout locks out both the front and the rear, but jumping back to that, with that ISO speed, you can see just how thin those rear chain stays are. So basically what that's made to do is flex. So instead of having a rear pivot back by the rear axle there, like you would see typically on a full suspension bike, they actually design those chain stays to flex. So they're, it's skinny, but then it's pretty wide. So they can only see, and I'm not going to yank the bike around in the stand just to show people how wide it is. But I mean, you can see it's way wider than, it's skinny and super wide. But that allows it to flex, so that's what gives it its movement. Really kind of neat. Then you can lock the bike out and it's going to pedal just like a hardtail, which is nice. How much did the bike weigh?
23 pounds, 11 ounces with sealant and without tires, or without pedals, I mean.
Yep, 69-degree head tube angle on this bike, so this is a bike that's made to charge forward. And kind of interesting, and I'm not sure if Trek really did it on purpose or not, but the bottom bracket doesn't sit really high. So I think that's kind of interesting where we have this bike that's going to have a steep seat tube. It's going to have a fairly steep, at least to today's standards, a steep head tube, which I think was just like any normal trail bike, 3 years ago, 69 degrees. But anyway, very cross country now. But with that, this bike can pedal really well uphill, and then having that lower bottom bracket is going to make it feel a little bit more confident when you're going downhill, especially when you get into like a really fast turn. You're going to be sitting into this bike a little bit better, which I think is going to give you more confidence on those downhill areas. And then, like I said, you just lock out the rear end when you hit the flats on the end of a race and push it, because that's really ultimately, I think, who this bike is for, right? The Supercaliber is more geared towards somebody who's going to race, right, rather than somebody who's just going out to ride.
Yeah, it's a sweet race machine. It really it's everything you need and nothing more and nothing less.
Yeah, I dig it. Trek did a really good job right now. They've got a full suspension sale going, so a lot of these full suspension bikes are on sale. This bike's currently marked off $1,000, which is insane. So this is an AXS bike for around $6,000. Full carbon, top of line technology. I mean, this is all really new, innovative stuff. It's got carbon bars. Those are integrated bars, Ryan. Do you want to turn the handlebars so people can see those? That's probably actually not helpful. Yeah,
no stem there, so just like an integrated bar stem.
And then straighten it back out towards you. Yeah, so really nice. Again, just kind of makes the bike stiffer, allows your power transfer a little bit better throughout the bike. Linda's decided to join us for the podcast. But yeah, Trek's got their full suspension bike off. So this one was $1,000 off. Go to Trek's website, look and see what bikes are on sale. You can order any bike from trekbikes.com, have it shipped to the mountain bike shed. It works out exactly the same for us. We definitely appreciate when people do that, whether it's, one of the new fuel, you can get a Fuel EX7 for like $31.99 right now with the new geometry. Really cool bike, or a bunch of other stuff's on sale. So have it shipped to the shed. It's the same to us if you pick it off the showroom floor, as long as it comes here to the shop. But go to trekbikes.com for that. For all the other stuff, you can go to mtbshed.com. But yeah, if you're racing, then buy the Supercaliber. If you're not going to race mountain bikes, what bike do you think would be a good instead of this bike? You want something nice, maybe a top fuel if you're kind of looking for something to ride around the St. Louis area, but you're not going to be racing.
Right. If you're not racing and you're not really needing that extreme efficiency, then yeah, something like one of your more average full suspensions with more travel front and rear it's a tad bit more to pedal against and bring with you, but you're not racing, so you're in no hurry and you just want to enjoy the ride really well. Something like a Top Fuel or a Fuel EX would be maybe a better choice in that case. Yeah, it's a sick bike for the racer. It's getting a lot of efficiency out of still wanting front and rear suspension.
So I set up this whole camera so we could look at the screen over here and really give people some ideas of what's happening, and I completely forgot it. So this is the ISO strut here. Again, if you go to Truck's website, they've got really great videos on all their stuff. Even a lot of like pro riders and stuff will end up doing it. But the folks can kind of read along and see how the ISO strut works. I just attacked myself with the bike.
I've hit that one like twice today.
But yeah, axis really easy to set up as well. So that's nice. Carbon cranks on this guy. 29er. I think, the really short chain stays also surprised me. It's 400. They're 430. So that's 430 millimeters, pretty short for a rear chainstay, especially on like a race bike that's kind of meant maybe for higher speeds and stuff like that. So again, that's going to add to the nimbleness of this bike and its ability to, maybe on a more technical climb like we have here in St. Louis, this bike might really excel having that shorter chain stays along the rear end of it. People are watching on screen Trek's video, which is partially covered up by it playing its own video on top of it because I'm terrible at production. But yeah, basically it's just showing how that ISO strut works. You have a strut that the shock actually sits inside. The whole thing is kind of designed to be really stiff. Again, this is meant to kind of be a hardtail that's a little bit softer on the rear end. So really cool, bolt in the top there, holds everything in place so there's no twisting or anything along those lines. And again, that's why that rear end's a little bit wider as well, to kind of keep it from having the horizontal movement. No horizontal movement, but it can move laterally up and down. Yes, laterally. I seem to have a problem with words today, but yeah, really cool bike. I guess we can end on the truck video here. There's not much else to say. I think anybody who's shopping for this bike is a very specific customer. You know who you are. If you don't know you're that customer, you're not. You need to look at a Top Fuel if you're looking for something efficient, or we really like the Fuel EXs here, especially, even here in the Midwest. We're not out in a big mountain bike out west or in a mountain range, but we have Bentonville, Arkansas. Bike parks are popping up all around the country. So I think it's really important that people aren't going to be under-biked. I mean, that's right. The big deal. Bikes, suspensions work pretty well now. So if you're not racing, get a bike that's going to be comfortable. You don't want to overwork yourself on local trails, but you're not going to take a Supercal down to Bentonville when your buddies ask you to go. So,
right.
I think that's a thought to consider.
Right, and for the people going for one bike that would maybe go towards a Fuel EX or a Top Fuel over this bike for the overbikeness reason, really just right there, being overbiked is always being better than being underbiked, assuming you're not racing. Mm-hmm. Like me, for example, I ride out at Bluffview all the time, and I have a hardtail dirt jumper. I've ridden it on those trails, and it's not horrible. If that was my only bike, I'd ride it all the time. But I also have a mountain bike with 170 mil of travel out the front and rear, and I'll get pretty rowdy out there and figure out ways to bottom out 170 all day long in the Midwest. So being overbiked is definitely to your advantage if you're just an all-around rider and you maybe want to get pretty sendy some days. There's the Midwest is not super popular in terms of a lot of altitude and having a lot of long downhill runs. So for that reason, people think you don't need some of the biggest travel bikes. I would argue that there are some places you could figure out how to bottom those bikes out and have a lot of fun. So it really just comes down to, I guess, the preference and the riding style of the rider at the end of the day.
Yep. Yeah, even the Top Fuel now, it's 130 mil of travel, which would have been like an enduro bike, again, 3 years ago. So
Right.
Top Fuel is fine if you're wanting something that pedals, it's still going to pedal really well, not overbike, a little bit more cross-country geometry. You can go with Top Fuel. If you want something that'll go to Bentonville, get a Fuel EX5. If you want something that's going to get you on a podium so you can win some races, if you're a NICA dude, if you participate in any of the Federation of Dirt Series races around here in Missouri or the Midwest, then definitely pick up a Super Cal. Soften up that rear end a little bit and still have the efficiency. How much did this bike weigh?
23 pounds, 11 ounces.
Okay. With tubes?
With sealant.
With sealant.
And no pedals.
Cool. All right, man. I think that is it for us tonight. But yeah, people can go to mtbshed.com. They can shop there for anything we sell. They should subscribe on YouTube. And tomorrow night is Thursday. I should have mentioned that in the beginning, but we are doing our giveaway, our monthly giveaway. It's a muck-off prize pack. So we do that every month on the first of the month, 8 p.m. You have to be in the live on Instagram and Facebook. We give away, prize pack could be anywhere from, this month's the smaller one's $250, but we gave away an electric bike a couple months ago. We'll do some other cool stuff as we move forward. So definitely tune in, first every month, 8 p.m., Instagram, Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, check out other bike reviews. And again, I don't think anybody buying the Super Cal needs a review to tell them that the Super Cal is the right bike for them. I think if you're thinking about a Super Cal, you need to just buy it. And buy it at truckbikes.com, have it shipped to the mountain bike shed. If anybody lives within 4 hours of the mountain bike shed and they want to buy a $5,000 plus bike, I will drive it to their house personally. So you can have it shipped here, we'll build it here at the shop, and I will drive my butt to your house in any bordering state to Missouri and drop it off for you. So shop at mtbshed.com, subscribe.